Welcome. For this deep dive, we're tackling a really major confrontation, the one between the Trump administration and Harvard University.
Right. And it's got big implications.
Exactly. This isn't just about Harvard, is it? It really digs into some core issues in higher education today.
For sure. Things that affect universities everywhere.
We've got some source material detailing the administration's demands, and Harvard's pushback regarding federal funding.
Yes, those exchanges are quite revealing.
So our aim here is really to get to the heart of this dispute. What's going on? What's actually at stake for these universities? And, well, what does it mean for the principles they stand for?
Okay. So looking at the administration side first, their actions were pretty direct.
They were.
They specifically asked Harvard to lessen the influence of faculty and students they labeled as activists.
That seems like a significant demand on its own.
It is. And it wasn't just a friendly suggestion. They called for viewpoint diversity, which sounds okay maybe, but they wanted it verified through external audits.
External audits. Wow. That immediately brings up questions about, well, who runs the university, doesn't it?
Precisely. Institutional autonomy is right at the center there.
And it wasn't only about the faculty or student activists, right? It went further.
Oh, yeah. It touched on hiring and admissions, too. A big push for merit-based systems, specifically framed to get rid of race-based preferences.
Okay, so faculty, students, hiring, admissions.
And international students. There was this insistence on stricter screening for them.
Stricter screening based on what?
Based on aligning with, quote, American values. So, you see, it's about shaping the university internally, but also its global links.
And how did the administration frame all this? What was the justification?
Well, public framing often tied back to tackling alleged anti-Semitism on campuses. This followed the pro-Palestinian protests after, the events involving Hamas and Israel last fall.
Right, that context is important. And these demands weren't just words. There was serious financial leverage involved.
Oh, absolutely. They froze $2.3 billion in federal funding for Harvard.
$2.3 billion. That's enormous.
It's a huge sum. And it wasn't isolated. It was apparently part of a wider review looking at about $9 billion in federal contracts and grants across different places.
So a much bigger picture.
Definitely. And look at Columbia University. A similar situation unfolded there, with a $400 million funding freeze and talk of potential federal oversight.
So it shows a pattern, potentially, a strategy, perhaps.
It certainly looks coordinated. The link between the demands and pulling the funding is very direct, very clear.
Okay, so faced with all that, the demands, the audits, the massive funding freeze, how did Harvard respond?
Harvard's president, Alan Garber, came out strongly against it.
What did he say?
He called it government overreach, plain and simple. Said it threatened the university's independence and violated free speech rights.
Strong words.
Yes. He actually said, no government should dictate what private universities teach, whom they admit, or which areas of study they pursue. Really drawing a line in the sand.
So defending that core principle of academic freedom and institutional independence.
Exactly. While also stating they were addressing anti-Semitism, but that needed to happen alongside protecting constitutional rights, not one instead of the other.
Makes sense. And were they just making statements or taking practical steps too?
Practical steps. They started looking into a huge loan, around $750 million.
Wow. Just to cover potential shortfalls.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
It suggests they were preparing for this funding freeze to last, potentially. And it wasn't just the administration. Faculty got involved legally.
How so?
Faculty members at both Harvard and Columbia filed lawsuits,
On what grounds?
arguing these actions violated academic freedom. So you see the faculty pushing back hard to block the administration, defending those core university principles.
So this really escalates beyond just an administrative disagreement. It's hitting the courts.
Right, which raises the question, what happens if these kinds of challenges become the norm? How does that change how universities function long term?
Looking at the bigger picture then, for people listening, this whole situation really throws a spotlight on these simmering tensions, doesn't it? Free speech on campus, civil rights, how universities navigate really divisive political topics.
Absolutely. It's not just about Harvard or Columbia. This could genuinely shift the whole relationship between government and higher education across the country.
A fundamental clash, really.
It is a basic disagreement over how much influence the government should have inside the walls of a private university, especially when framed around sensitive issues like anti-Semitism and free speech.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We've seen a major conflict here, It's centered on government influence versus university independence.
Yeah, sparked by concerns over anti-Semitism and viewpoint diversity, countered by these universities really digging in on academic freedom and their constitutional rights.
A fundamental clash, as you said, between institutional autonomy and government oversight.
That's the core of it.
So, here's something to leave you thinking about. We have these critical principles clashing: university independence versus government oversight. What long-term effects do you think this kind of conflict could have? For higher education, yes, but also just for how we pursue knowledge in society. Something important to consider as this story continues. Thanks for joining this deep dive.